that was the moment when I realised I was probably completely on my own in the party.
Let's speak now to Rosie Duffield, Labour candidate for Canterbury. And we should say this interview was pre-arranged prior to recent events unfolding. Rosie Duffield, welcome to the programme.
Hi, Andrew.
Let me turn first to the abuse you've been experiencing in this campaign itself. I know you've had a lot before, but in this campaign, what sorts of things have been happening that led you to the decision you've now had to take?
I knew that a particular group of mostly former Labour members were going to sort of stage a few noisy protests against me, and they did when I had my campaign launch, and that's their right, that's okay. The police and my security team kept me and my guests safe, but it just got to the stage where the sort of online incitement was just too much. People saying, you know, let's get Duffield at this event or whatever. You know, I think I realised that those public events like hustings, if those people kept on sort of following me around and yelling, it would really damage the whole process of giving everybody on that platform a voice. And I've done those hustings lots and lots of times before. I usually really enjoy them, but some of my fellow candidates haven't ever had the chance to do that. I thought that they deserved the right to be able to speak freely without being yelled at by a few really vitriolic people.
You say your security team. Quite surprising words to hear from an MP. What's your security team?
Um, it's become quite normal that most, particularly women MPs, have the ability to be accompanied by security when we're out and about. And during this campaign, it was kind of announced quite quickly. My campaign team and I hadn't really set anything up, but we've got a fantastic local security group that we know here and in Canterbury. And so I just sort of engaged them before I did this event. And then we were talking to them about other events. And I realised that it was just a bit too much, to be honest.
I can understand that. This means you fear more than online abuse. Online abuse is one thing, it's pretty horrible, can be very nasty, intimidating, and so on. But it's clear that you, I would suggest, with a security team, you now feel unsafe out and about. You feel at real risk of violence to your person.
I think it's potential violence. You know, I'm not saying that there are a load of murderers or people out there. The guy that threatened me and Joe Rowling got sentenced a couple of weeks ago. You referenced him, but it's just the abuse. It's just the constant yelling. I'm supposed to be on a platform calmly focused on Labour's manifesto commitments so I can do my best to represent the party, and you know, it messes with your head. I'm not going to lie. If you're sitting there and you've got someone who's intent, there's one particular woman who kind of leads this group who is intent on just sort of throwing off my chances, and it doesn't seem fair. And I realised that I couldn't do a good job.
It seems it's become almost impossible to distinguish between people protesting your position on trans rights, which is entirely open to people to do in a democracy. That's what democracy allows. But to distinguish between that and threats to your person, that the two now, from what you're saying, seem to elide together.
Yeah, it seems to be a good excuse. And I want to make it clear, most of the people kind of coming out to protest actually here in Canterbury are not trans themselves. The woman who's sort of leading the sort of hate campaign against me and has been doing for about 7 years is an ex-Corbyn supporter. So we've got some people here locally that were either expelled from the Labour Party or left when Keir Starmer became the leader, and they're very, very anti-me because I'm not Jeremy Corbyn, and it's a quite handy sort of issue to jump on. So it's not trans people themselves that are really threatening me or causing problems, and I've read quite a lot that it is trans people. It isn't. I think most of those just want to go about their daily business, but it's become a sort of excuse for the very left of the party who've now decided they're supporting Greens mostly, and I don't think it represents my local Green Party, by the way. They've just decided that they're going to weaponise this issue, which isn't fair on either trans people or women who are talking about the possible clash of rights.
Now, I don't think anybody listening, seeing you, can blame you for the justified fears that you have. We know what's happened in the past. It's a more dangerous world to be a politician, even in dear old Britain. But what
Yeah.
did you think when Labour peer Michael Cashman simply said you'd cancelled the hustings because you were frit, which I take it to be frightened, or lazy?
Yeah.
What was your reaction when you heard that?
It's really disappointing. I mean, I'm happy for him, and I don't know Lord Cashman. I'm happy for him to criticise my beliefs. You know, whatever he thinks. I think we agreed on huge amounts, including things like Brexit. But we've never had a conversation. He can call me whatever he likes, but I really resent being called lazy because I work very hard and I love my job. I think most MPs work very hard, actually.
I, I mean, I know he's apologised. Keir Starmer's withdrawn the
Yeah.
whip. He's apologised and all the rest of it. But I'm still puzzled as to what mindset would lead anybody to, particularly a member of the House of Lords who knows recent British political history, would lead anybody to make that remark, and particularly a member of your own party.
Yeah, it was really disappointing. But Lord Cashman is very involved in LGBT rights. He always has done. He clearly feels incredibly passionate about that and those issues. And I've decided, all the interviews I've been asked to comment on him, I've said no, because I think all that can do is just incite more sort of hatred and more trolling of him. And that's not fair. He's absolutely entitled to his views. I think it was unfortunate that he made it so personal, considering he doesn't know me. We've never sat down and we've never had those conversations.
And I'm sure he regrets it now. But we'll see if anything else happens to him. Let's go back a bit and talk about how this all started, Rosie Duffield. Back, I think it was in 2020, you
Mm.
tweeted what many folks might think would be quite uncontroversial, that, quote, only women have a cervix. And in a way, that's what started it all, is it not? Explain what then followed.
It's all entirely Piers Morgan's fault, I'm afraid, because he
It
tweeted
usually is.
he tweeted that and was sort of mocking. I think it was a health tweet saying, people with a cervix should go for checks, and he said, "I think you mean women," and I liked it because I thought I hadn't actually really put my head above the parapet, and those were my beliefs, but I hadn't found a kind of non-toxic seeming, almost comical way of just sort of saying, come on, this is ridiculous. And that afforded me a really good way, I thought, of sort of entering the debate kind of publicly. So I liked it, and then all hell broke loose.
I guess you didn't foresee that when you did that. You didn't
No,
realize
no.
the abuse that was about to be heaped on you.
No, but I mean, I think other people have gone there before, so I kind of braced myself slightly
Mm.
and thought, you never know, this could be quite unpleasant. Liked the tweet, and then was prepared to get a little bit of pushback, because a lot of people have. And immediately my team were panicking, like my staff were panicking and wanted me to issue an apology because LGBT Labour condemned me and wrote all these statements and things. And I think I did allow an apology statement to be released, but I didn't want to do that. I didn't feel that I should have done, but I also wanted to protect my staff, and I was worried that
Mm.
they would be associated with me. So everything sort of spiraled from there, really.
And it spiraled so that by the autumn of 2021, Labour Party conference time, Brighton,
Yeah.
you were advised, I understand, by the police not to attend
I
at
had
your
some
own party
conversations.
conference.
Yeah, I had some conversations again from security people just saying, is this a great idea? And the atmosphere was so toxic. I just thought, you know what? I'd rather not attend. I didn't tell anyone, but I think somebody I was discussing it with released it to the press, and I was mortified because that became the sort of headline. And it was discussed for about 3 weeks. And it was Keir Starmer's first speech at conference. And I thought, I'm just going to just quietly not go because I didn't want to be the headlines. And then it became the headlines. So it was really unfortunate.
Now, it was at that conference that Keir Starmer was asked by Andrew Marr whether it was transphobic to say what you has said. So it's not right, he said. What did you feel? But then your leader was kind of hanging you out to dry, was he not?
Yeah, I mean, I watched that, and then I watched every front bench and shadow cabinet spokesman kind of almost domino say almost the same thing, and I just watched it from I don't know where I was at home, and I just watched it. I thought, oh my god, here we go again, and it was that was the moment when I realised I was probably completely on my own in the party.
What did you make though? He went on to say that he was concerned that the tweet that you had made and the liking was upsetting people who were very vulnerable, and that's
Mm.
why you shouldn't have said it. What did you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, that's an absolutely valid point, and him and I could have discussed it. And I had met with him just before conference to sort of explain my position and the position of Labour Women's Declaration, which is a group of thousands of Labour women members, and why we were so frustrated that we hadn't been able to talk about this issue. Labour Women's Declaration were barred from going to conference and having a stall and explaining their position. And all we wanted was those conversations for our point of view to be listened to. But all of the conversations and the briefings were dominated by this one group, LGBT plus Labour, and they had a very fixed view, and it wasn't centred in women's rights, the clash between those groups.
So you felt you hadn't couldn't go to the conference. That
So,
became big news. Your
yeah.
leader kind of disowned you in a way publicly, which left you, I would suggest, sort of isolated. Did Keir Starmer then reach out to you? Did he then, behind closed doors, did he reach out to, I mean, almost put an arm around you, metaphorically put an arm around you?
No. No, I mean, I think that was when all of the sort of complaints escalated. LGBT Labour organised that members and people that were kind of affiliated with them wrote in mass complaints. So that kind of carried on for a few years.
One of the advantages of being a member of a party, a political party, is it's your tribe. It's people, like-minded people. You have a support system there. Uh, when you hit your period of difficulty, did you get any support either from the Labour Party or from the leader or the leader's office?
No, I mean, no. I've got lots of great friends in the party, and my colleagues were supportive, but obviously terrified of being me. Nobody wanted to speak out if they agreed with me in the party, and we were very much, of the impression that those who agreed about the clash between women's rights and some rights that trans people were fighting for, like self-ID, that we were the pariahs and that we were not welcome to speak up. And I'm not blaming the leader for that at all. That's the culture, and some of the affiliated societies and unions and people that are very influential in the Labour Party made that a very difficult atmosphere for people like me.
When you announced that you felt it was unsafe to have hustings in this campaign, to
Yeah.
be in certain public places, did you then get some support from the Labour Party, some security advice? Did they send people to talk to you, to help you, to advise, um, to offer some compassionate support?
I mean, security is up to all members to kind of organise themselves, and Parliament and the Home Office have been providing that, and they have now reached out to me to make that easier. But yeah, I mean, I've now been reached out to by Keir's team. Somebody messaged me this morning, and a member of his staff has been keeping an eye on, I guess, the news and making sure that I'm okay. Yeah.
After Keir Starmer said these words at the Brighton conference in 2021, he then ran into some trouble on the media on several occasions in trying to define the word woman,
Yeah.
whether women could have penises. He didn't seem to be able just to give a straight answer to that. It was a sign, was it not, that his position was quite hard to defend in public, quite hard to articulate in public.
Yeah, and I mean, you've got to remember that, obviously, the leader of a party has to juggle all of the interests of all of the people involved here, all of the stakeholders, if you like, and LGBT Labour, they intersect with members of our National Executive Committee, people on his staff, people in unions, people leading other affiliated groups. And Keir was probably very mindful of those people. They're very active, very loud, very vocal, and very front and centre of the Labour Party. And I guess it's a constant juggle, between women's voices, people like me and Labour Women's Declaration and other women's rights groups, and those very loud people that are at the heart and the centre of Labour politics.
But then came what you might call a miraculous conversion. The Cass review came out,
Yeah.
and Mr. Starmer changed his views with that uh, publication of that review. Uh,
Mm.
did he call you up then and say, "Look, you were kind of right, I was wrong, but we're now on side together on this"? Did he do that?
No, I mean, I've been talking to Wes Streeting about the Cass review. He's obviously, as the future, we hope, health secretary, been
Mm.
really engaged in that and has been watching this and reading everything that groups like Labour Women's Declaration and me have sent him. And I think, you know, that's really reassuring that he knew that this was a pivotal moment for all of us, where we looked at how gender dysphoric people and children are treated. And it's so vital if you're going to take the health brief. And I'm really grateful for those conversations with Wes. But Keir's a very busy man. He's leading the Labour Party. I don't think he had time to
Of
talk.
course, he is indeed preparing to be prime minister. We'll keep him busy
Yeah.
too. But in April of this year, he was asked about your tweet again, and by this time he had changed his tune. What did you think when you?
I knew
What
that
did you
as a
think
woman.
that you heard when you heard that?
I didn't really need Keir Starmer to tell me that I was right about any women having cervix, but it's nice that he did.
I suppose. But even then, as he had kind of moved more in your direction, he still didn't reach out to you. I mean, have you had any interaction with him in recent months, recent years?
Yes, we did have a meeting a couple of months ago, just a week or so before the election was announced, because I think he had worked out that I was very, not just me, lots of backbenchers were very upset about several of the Tory benches joining us, and his sudden interest in Kent, which was quite difficult for me. So we met about that a few weeks ago, and I guess that was
But
good time.
but I think he launched the Labour campaign, and Ken, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was
He
in
did indeed.
Gillingham,
He
and
did.
I think are you're the only Labour MP in Kent? Is that right?
Yeah, as we speak, yes.
Yeah, it's
Since
true. I think
2010, I've been the only Labour MP.
so. Things may change. You may have more company after July the 4th. But
Let's hope so. Yeah.
so he launches in Kent. You're the only
Mm.
Labour MP in Kent. He wants more Labour
Yes.
MPs in Kent, but you weren't invited.
No. I think it's probably the regional directors that organise these kinds of things, and we have a southeast regional team, and I guess they were sort of very hurriedly trying to put this event together. But it was disappointing because I saw candidates from all across Kent, and I seem to have been the only person who wasn't invited.
You see, one of the things, I know this wasn't in any way intentional on your part, but your experience with him and his change of views, which we've just heard from Andrew Marr to Susanna Reid, it's not many things are hurting him in this campaign. That Labour lead remains solid,
Mm.
but he has developed a reputation as a bit of a flip-flopper, that he changes his views, and your experience with him has added to that reputation, has it not?
I guess to a certain degree, but actually, don't we want politicians who really research what they're talking about? And I hate that phrase, been on a journey, I hate it. But I think if you start out feeling one way about something, you realise that the public are not with that position. You're going to go away, you're going to research it, you're going to talk to more people. And it's perfectly legitimate to say that you changed your mind. I don't think there's a problem with that. But, obviously, flip-flop is the kind of term that's used against politicians, not people like me, because I dig down on my positions, like things like Brexit. But I guess I'm a dinosaur in that respect.
Tell me where are you now in these issues? Now, as I understand it, the Labour Party wants to reduce the number of medical practitioners who would support an application for a gender recognition certificate from 2 to 1, and otherwise to make it a bit easier. Perhaps they can just ask their GP and they can do it. What's your feeling about that?
I mean, I've read those articles as well. Again, nobody's spoken to me about what my views are, but I do find it disturbing as a feminist that you still have to have two medical practitioners if you want an abortion, for example, as an adult woman, that one person might be able to clear the path to medical transition. I find that quite disturbing, because we know that there are so many different groups who will think about transitioning, and then potentially when they get older or other issues are helped with, like, perhaps they have therapy and they unravel exactly what's going on with them. This is a huge decision, let's not forget, and it's irreversible. I find it a little bit worrying that only one practitioner might be involved. And if they're a GP, they will not have had specialist training. I've spoken to GPs who are really worried about that, because they'll get blamed if they potentially make the wrong decision. They could be subject to the same kind of threats that I've had. So I think we need to safeguard GPs in that area, and they're not specialists.
Let me just ask you two final questions. One, the political one, and the second, a policy one. On the political one, if you are returned for the people of Kent on July the 4th, will you still face an element, a degree of hostility on the Labour backbenches if you're back in the House of Commons?
I suspect so. I mean, a lot of our candidates were chosen quite a while ago. They seem to be sort of professional candidates for quite a while now, whereas people like me were chosen in the snap election and just sort of had to hurriedly get on with it. But and I think that they were probably chosen at a time and vetted by the NEC when our position was different. So I think that puts them in a very difficult position. But perhaps they feel freer to kind of examine the issue. And having seen the latest Labour lines on it, perhaps there will be less hostility. I'd like to think so.
Have there been times during this trial that you felt lonely, that you wished you had, although you're convinced of your position, but you I wish I'd never gone down this road?
I'll be honest, I think most MPs I know describe this job as incredibly lonely. Now, that sounds like we're very entitled and we don't know how lucky we are, but it is a unique job. There's only 650 of us in the country, and we're all responsible solely for our particular patch, our constituency. And particularly with Canterbury, over things like Brexit, I have felt tremendously lonely. And when I'm at odds with Labour Party policy, I have felt incredibly isolated. And I'll be honest, that's not great for anyone's sense of well-being or anyone's mental health, or emotional, kind of how you get through a day. I mean, that's been really difficult sometimes. Yeah.
And just briefly, my final question to you: where this debate's not over, it continues. Though the forces on your side, you've got the support of J.K. Rowling, and she and others have built up quite a head of steam on this issue on their side. Where does the debate go from here?
I think we have to just all speak to each other. Nobody is trying to alienate trans people. They need help and support. But it's not okay to call therapy offered to young people who are thinking about going through this conversion therapy. I think we have to talk about that. Talking therapy, and experts and psychotherapists talking to people who are considering literally a change to their bodies and their fertility and their future that they are never going to be able to change. That therapy has to not be lumped with gay conversion therapy. That's a policy change I'm really keen to talk to the Labour leadership about, because we seem to be putting everything under one blanket. Conversion therapy. Gay conversion therapy is illegal, thank goodness, and largely never done in this country, thank God.
Indeed.
But it isn't the same as talking therapy for those thinking about these life-changing decisions.
Rosie Duffield, I hope we get a chance to talk to you about these things in the months ahead. But I thank you for your time today in the middle of a busy and obviously stressful election campaign.